Wānanga kōrero, e tikana kia timata I te karakia. Kōrera, te karakia tāpaki hei hiri ake. Mana wa mai e te rangi e tū nei, mana wa mai e te pai raro nei, mana wa mai e ngā makuru o te rangi o te whenua, tō mana o tōku manua ka whakairi ake ki runga. Kia tēnā, haumi e, hui e, tā e ki e. Kia punui kia porahi, a kei whakataitai ki te rangi tēnā rākou tau rarau mai, ki tēnei wānanga a ipurangi, te tūtui I ngā kōrero I ngā whakaaro a tēnā. Ko te whakaaro nui ki ngā mate hua te motu, e mau tonu ana I tēnei mea mate, pōuri, mamai, kaimaha e pōkai kaha nei. Mea nei te rironga o tēnā a kiwi, tēnā whakangaro atura. Whenua kia tātou ngā waihotanga, ngā kiko, tēnā rā tātou katoa. As the host of Practice Foundation Online Forum, we welcome everyone who has joined us this morning for this 1.5 hours. My name is Elizabeth Motsiriri. In the background, we also have our team, Kelly, Lee, who will be in the background that's sorting all the technical stuff. I just wanted to acknowledge, if you want to get in touch with them, please shoot them a message in the background. Oreira, tēnā koutou, tēnā rā tātou katoa. We also have Jackie Chan, who has joined us for Practice Foundation, and our team, who will be doing an illustration for our 2025 series. Jackie will share the start of the illustration at the end of the session. Nō reira, tēnā koe, Jackie. Our purpose for today, for Practice Foundation, is to provide a space for those working in the public sector who are working in complex environments to come together with other like-minded people. Reira, nau mai koutou katoa. We would like to acknowledge that this is a difficult time for many people, and we would like to encourage and support everyone to take care of themselves and each other as much as they can. We hope you find coming together today in today's session restorative. It's here. If you have any questions, issues or concerns, feel free to reach out. We also just want to let everyone know we won't be allowing any IA bots like Read AI to attend these sessions. This is in order to keep this a safe space for people to connect. And if you're unable to attend, most of our sessions are recorded and able to watch online at a later date. The purpose or the rhythm of today's session: Tuia ki te rangi, tuia ki te whenua, tuia ki te moana, tuia ki te here tangata, karongo te pō, karongo te ao. For the past 12 months, the Auckland Co-Design Lab has been involved in the tukutoru from a Mātauranga Māori perspective. In this session, Angie Tangaere from Ngāti Porou and Eruini Hawke from Ngāti Whātua, Ngāti Mahuta, Ngāti Ranginui, Ngāti Awa, Ngāti Pikiao, me Ngāti Maniapoto, e rā iwi. We'll share how deepening our knowledge of Mātauranga Māori of te Taiao can shift and understand and providing us with the valuable practices for working in complex systems. Nō reira, Ēnei tokorua, Angie Tangaere was born in Papakura and raised in South Auckland with a whakapapa to Ngāti Porou on her father's side and Pākehā with the connections to Taranaki on her mother's side. Angie is a kaitohu tangata whenua at Auckland Co-Design Lab. We also have tēnei mātanga Kōrero tuku iho, Eruini Hawke, Ngāti Whātua, Ngāti Mahuta, Ngāti Ranginui, Ngāti Awa, Ngāti Pikiao, and Ngāti Mahuta, has over 20 years of experience in environmental spaces. He has a strong foundation in te ao Māori, inclusive of te reo Māori meona tikanga Kōrero tuku iho, Mātauranga a iwi, and he ensures that this work always guided, his work is always guided and informed by the teachings of his tupuna. Nō reira, ko hua te rākau kōrero, ki wēnei tokorua. I'll give the rākau over to these beautiful people that will then tie in the kōrero, will build on the kōrero from the previous sessions exploring te whiwhinga and Hautu Waka with Sasha McKing's kōrero on how Mātauranga Māori can enable effective social investment. Today, Today's session provides some useful practices drawn from Mātauranga Māori for working with complex environments. So together, during this 90-minute session, we will then whakawhanaunga with each other with small breakout groups, hear from Angie and Eruini, go back into breakout groups for some reflection time, and then have a whole group kōrero, a wānanga. Mō reira, hoa te rākau kōrero kia koe, e te tungane e Eruini.
Kia ora, mōrena e te whare. Te tuatahi māku ka mehe atu kia koe e riri. Nau I tūwhera I te ara wairua. Kia wātea tēnei wānanga kia tātou katoa. Tēnei te mihi aroha kia koe e te tuahine. Kia ora e te whare. In today's session, we will be doing a few things. This morning we're going to be drawing on Mātauranga Māori of Te Taiao, the environment, and Te Aotearoa, the natural world, to shift our understanding and to gather new practices for working within complex systems like the public sector. First, together, we're going to take a moment to observe the Taiao. We're going to ask ourselves, what can we see, hear, and feel and or notice? Now, if you can't make it outside physically, try and find a window to observe the environment, the natural world outside. And you're asking yourself, what can you see, what can you hear, and what can you feel and or notice? If for any reason you can't see the natural world outside, please take stock of your current Taiao, your current environment. Observe the room temperature, the noise volume. Is it loud and busy? Is it eerily quiet? Try to observe any other signs that might be available to you in your space. Also take into consideration what you cannot see, hear and feel. Does being disconnected from the natural state of the environment also influence you? Let's take 2 minutes to do this, e te whānau. Kia ora, everybody. Hope you had the opportunity to take stock of the natural world and your environment. Now we're going to send you into your breakout rooms where you can introduce yourself and also share what you observed in that 2-minute observation exercise. Please also take this opportunity to activate your ears and listen intently to the observation of others. And then please also share what you yourself observed when you looked out the window, when you looked around your space. Tēnā tātou. Nau mai hoki mai ki tēnei wānanga o tātou. Welcome back, everybody. The following practices are part of a framework, approach, lens that we are currently in the 2.0 version of developing here at the Auckland Co-Design Lab. We named this framework Te Toko Toru, the Unbreakable 3. Before we dive into these practices, I'd just like to acknowledge and thank Tyrone Ohia and Poi Ngāwati, who are designers from a company called Extended Whānau. They worked with us to develop and design the new Tohu. These symbols are based within Mātauranga Māori. The figure at the top is Te Rangi. This depiction of Te Rangi visually represents its presence as a kaitiaki within the realm of Te Toko Toru. Inspired by a guardian watching over all elements of the sky, including Tamanui Te Rā, the sun, the design reflects this connection through its chosen colours of orange and yellow, symbolising warmth, light and celestial energy. The figure on the bottom right is Te Whenua. The design for Te Whenua features a wheku, or a carved face, inspired by natural earth elements such as rākau, or wood, commonly found in our environment. Its earthly brown tones emphasise the deep connection to the land and highlight the contrast between Te Rangi and Te Whenua. The figure on the bottom left is Te Moana. The design of Te Moana reflects the roles and responsibilities of the ocean and large bodies of water. This form is inspired by a single water droplet, symbolising the essence of Te Moana. The chosen colours are drawn from the natural aesthetics of water, reinforcing its connection to the element of wai. In the centre is the tohu designed for ira tangata, which symbolises harmony between man and woman and the balance they bring to one another. It features 2 manaia that are interwoven to form a takarangi, or a double spiral, representing the very essence of creation. This design embodies the dynamic exchange of mauri, energy, between te pō and te ao, reflecting the fundamental balance of the universe. The chosen colour, kokowai, or red ochre, signifies human mortality and the origins of mankind, shaped from clay. Through practicing te tokotoru, we, ira tangata, move with, through, and around these key spaces of te Taiao. And as we interact, we have the opportunity to take note of the many environmental indicators which give us an idea of the state of our natural world. This whakatauki, or proverb, is an ancient one. Our tupuna Māori use proverbs like this to remind us of the deep knowledge embedded within te ao tūroa, or the natural world. Tuia ki te rangi, tuia ki te whenua, tuia ki te moana, tuia ki te herenga tangata, ka rongo te pō, ka rongo te ao. Weave together the elements of the sky, weave together the elements of the earth and all that is in between, so that we may truly know and understand how balance can be achieved. In te ao Māori, your environment is a living system of knowledge. By observing and triangulating environmental tohu, we are doing more than just watching nature. We are participating in a dialogue within the natural world. We are connecting into a system we are naturally a part of. There are numerous environmental indicators within the varying realms of te ao tūroa. Each taiao provide different tohu or signs. We have some examples of this here. When we look into te rangi, we can observe ngā kapua, the clouds. By observing the kapua, it gives us an indication of wind condition, it gives us an indication of incoming rain and potential storms. When we look higher into the atmosphere, we can observe hina, the moon. Our tupuna would observe the moon intently, and through those observations, they would build maramataka, or lunar calendars. Today, the lunar calendar is tamatea tūhaha, which is in accordance to the mātauranga, an unpredictable time, but a good time for observation and a good time for gathering new learnings. When we look around the sky, we can observe the whetū, stars like matariki. We can observe the planets and their movements, and also rehua. When we come back down into the atmosphere, we can observe the manu. Birds give us an indication of the time of day. Birds also tell us what season we're in, and also give an indication to the environmental abundance. When we switch our gaze down to the whenua, to the earth, we can look towards rākau, or trees. We can observe the pohutukawa. The pohutukawa blooming flower is an indication that the sea urchin, or kina, is ready to harvest. The blooming of the kōwhai flower is also an indication to the start of spring, which is a time to dig and prepare soil. When we observe the soil, we're also looking at soil structure and observing nutrient levels. And inside of that soil, we also have ngangara, or insects. The different insects that we observe also give us an indication to the time of day, the seasons that we're currently in, and an indication of environmental abundance. When we change our gaze outwards, we look towards the moana, the different bodies of water, and we can observe the waves. Waves that change in size and in strength are an indication of systems change. We can observe the tides, the king tides, the low tides. We can also look towards the rivers, ngā awa. By observing how the river ebbs and flows, it gives us an indication of what is currently happening within the water cycle of te Taiao, of te ao tūroa. Within those bodies of water, there are many creatures like ika, and depending on what ika we observe, that also gives us an indication for the time of day, the season that we're in, and also environmental abundance, or lack of. Here we have an example of observing tohu from the rangi, from the whenua, and from the moana to give us an indication of what is happening within our environment. This kōrero comes from Papa Rereata Makiha, a renowned tohunga ki roto i te ao Māori, no ngā puhi, no te arawa, no rangitane anō hoki. He says, the appearance of rehua, which is the Antares star, when it rises in the face of the sun, it triggers the peak flowering of the Pohutukawa and the northern rata. And it was also known by our people as the third phase of summer. It was also marked by the eggs of the takeke, or the piper fish, washing ashore. Now, 2 years ago, that phase moved by 7 weeks or so. But we still are able to track it because we follow those tohu, the tohu of rehua, the tohu of the flowering Pohutukawa. And when those tohu were aligned, the fish eggs of the piper fish washed ashore. When we train ourselves to interpret the many tohu correctly, it doesn't entirely matter when the tohu arrive. What matters most is that we understand the message being conveyed by the Taiao. Although timing is important, in this case, comprehension is key. When we're able to comprehend the tohu, we see ourselves in the system. When we see ourselves in the system, we observe tohu with an intention. With that intention, we look for triangulation. When we triangulate, it attunes us. Once we're attuned, we know what the appropriate phase of activation is. When this mahi is done correctly, it brings us back to center with an emphasis on healing and restoration. Ai tēnei wā ka tuku au I te rākau kōrero kia koe, Angie.
Oh, tēnā koe, Eruini. Ngā mihi mahana kia tātou. Thank you for that sharing, Eruini. Eruini's been talking about our deep te Taiao practices, our wisdoms, and I'm going to talk about how we've been drawing on those knowledge systems and practices for to inform our practices of complexity for system change. Mātauranga Māori o te Taiao reminds us of the interconnectedness of ourselves to each other, to papatua nuku, to ranginui, and to the universe. It reminds us that we are in deep relationship with others and the dimensions of te Taiao at all times. In turn, this helps us to recognise ourselves and our role in the systems we are seeking to change. Often we externalise system change. It's a system problem, when actually systems, particularly local and central government systems, are groups of people making decisions on a day-to-day basis. This focus brings a focus to ourselves, our preparedness to do the system change work, and the energy that we are bringing into the systems we are focused on. We need to work on ourselves as much as we think we need to work on the system. Eruini has talked to the domains of te Taiao, rangi, whenua, moana, and has provided an example of triangulation from Papaririata that draws across all those three domains. As we've deepened our knowledge and understanding of te Taiao practices, we've noticed ways of knowing, being and doing that support holding multiple domains through the signs of those domains and through the processes of attunement and observation, exploration and guidance, and activation. And we've noticed this practice of triangulation for holding multiple tohu in relationship as a way of connecting to multiple dimensions of te Taiao and identifying new patterns. We've drawn from this practice of triangulation to inform the way we would hold and grapple with the complexity of system change work. We've identified 3 key practices that we think enable ways of holding complexity rather than trying to simplify, compartmentalise, or think through linear processes to solve some of our most complex challenges. These 3 practices are embodied practices that require you to attune to yourself, to others, and to hold multiple dimensions of the work. I just want to tautoko Eruini's mihi to Tyrone and to Poi from Extended Whānau, and I just want to draw your attention to these 3 beautiful tohu or icon, these 3 beautiful purple tohu, and they represent manu, when they are travelling together, when they're on a herenga together, they represent the behaviours of the manu as they're navigating and the relationships of the manu to each other. And now I'm just going to deep dive these 3 practices. The first practice, attunement and observation. What are we noticing about ourselves, others, and the systems that we're working in? This practice invites us to prepare ourselves to observe with neutrality and to look for signs that we would not usually notice, to practice stillness and not to jump to solutions. And it encourages humility as we recognise our position in relationship to the power of our ecological systems. It's always a useful reminder to know that we are the taina. The second practice is exploration and guidance. Once we've attuned and observed different signs, and we're holding these signs in relationship to each other, we've triangulated them. What are the new patterns we observe, and how might we deepen our understanding of what this means? And one way for us to understand and deepen our knowledge of new patterns is to draw on the deep knowledge Eruini was alluding to, the deep knowledge of Indigenous systems who've been observing the natural world for a long time in place. The third is activation. Once we've identified new patterns, what does that tell us about where we put our energy, what we might focus on? So once a new pattern surfaces and we've identified a new pattern across the domains, what does that mean in terms of where we focus our efforts and where the opportunities for system change are? So we notice these 3 practices that help us to hold complexity, but we also started to think about the domains of rangi, whenua and moana, and the way that that helps us to organise tohu and think across those domains simultaneously. And we've drawn on our experience in innovation and system change to start to think about how do our te Taiao domains help us create a structure for understanding multiple dimensions and multiple tohu of system change. And we're going to share our prototype with you today. It's an ongoing process, but we just wanted to share where our thinking has landed. So as you can see, what we've tried to do is we've tried to map the system change capabilities and conditions against the domains that Eruini was just sharing with you before. And so we've got te tohu o te rangi, te tohu o te whenua, and te tohu o te moana. And we've organised the capabilities and conditions in this way. So we're thinking about high-level system capabilities and conditions, perhaps large organisational conditions and capabilities as being the tohu o te rangi. There's some examples there. We've thought about the tohu o te whenua as the domain where people are convening, they're converging, they're together, they're connected, and all of the capabilities and conditions that are required for us to be able to do that well and for us to be able to do the work well. And then the tohu o te moana we've thought about as personal and interpersonal capabilities, and we're most drawn to that because we are water. So we've thought about this as the personal capabilities and conditions that are required to do this really complex work in relationship with others. So in summary, we see these 3 practices drawn from Te Taiao as ways of bringing intentionality to thinking and working differently, and ways that help us to avoid defaulting to the way that we would usually solve problems, project manage and plan in relation to these really complex challenges. So now we're going to go into a bit of an exercise thinking about these 3 practices. what we'd like to focus on today is just one of the capabilities or conditions of te tohu or te moana, and that is relationships. So we're going to think about these three practices in relationship to the way that you are feeling in the work and in relationship with others in the spaces in those that you are holding those relationships. So we're going to, this is a 3-step process. We're going to do the first step together, and then you guys are going to go into a breakout group to do the second and third group as a smaller rōpū. So the first thing I want you to think about, and we're just going to take a moment to reflect together, is think about the relationships that you are holding in your spaces and your mahi, in this mahi of complex system change. And think about what you're noticing about those relationships at the moment and what you're noticing about yourself. So we're just going to take a couple of minutes for you to do that attuning now. We're going to do that together. So think about the relationships you're holding in your spaces and your mahi. What are you noticing about those relationships at the moment? And what are you noticing about yourself? So we'll just have a little moment of quiet for you to attune. Ka pai te whānau. Now what we're going to ask you to do as you go into the groups is to practice the second and third practices. So we've just attuned to how we're feeling about the relationships we're holding in our mahi and how that feels for ourselves. So we're attuning to that. As you go into the rōpū, I would like you to notice you need to be listening to what others will be sharing. And that's how you'll explore how is it feeling for others across the system. And then once you've shared as a rōpū about how relationships are feeling and how you're feeling in the work at the moment, we'd like you to notice any patterns and discuss what might you do, or what needs to be nurtured or taken notice of, and therefore what should you be putting your energy into when you look across the collective pattern of attuning to relationships and to yourselves. And Lee's going to pop you into some breakout groups, I think, for about 15 minutes. I'm going to ask you to listen to what others are attuning to, and then to talk about what you might do in response to the patterns that you're collectively identifying. Oh, kia ora te whānau. Hope you had some great kōrero, made some new connections, some new people. We're just going to ask you we're going to invite you to take a few minutes to drop any thoughts or reflections or any pārtai into the chat, and then we're going to have a kōrero together. Or if you'd just like to unmute and have a kōrero or ask a pārtai, kei te pai. Just like to say that this is a new and emerging way of thinking for us, so don't ask any hard questions. Just maybe high level questions that we can kōrero to.
Oh, kia ora kōrua, kia ora Angie, Eru.
Kia ora.
I'll just jump in. I don't know about pārtai, but maybe just a couple of really interesting musings from our breakout session. So some of the spaces that we stepped into was, I guess, acknowledging that the impact that our own core values on an individual level impacts the how we step in relationships, even in the workspace, and how that sort of lifts up, or how the potential for that to lift up at that overarching level towards what are those drivers and the why, irrespective of what the mahi is that is on the table, and also the complexities that come along with navigating core values that align, core values that differ to our own, and how that potentially influences our time investment because, you know, time is not a an unlimited sort of entity. And so it was just really interesting unpacking how that impacts what we do on a day-to-day basis, our thinking on a broader basis, challenging ourselves in terms of, you know, the boundaries that we can put in place and can't, because at the end of the day, we may not be the CEO of our entire lives, even though I feel like I am sometimes, but that ain't actually the case. But yeah, so that was just a really, really interesting kōrero in our little breakout session, which was really quite fabulous. So yeah, just a little musing there.
Oh, kia ora, Henero.
Tēnā koe hene rau I era kōrero. Just if you're feeling a bit uncomfortable, drop it in the chat forum. Some pātai, or what are the highlights or some of the gems that were in that you had in conversation in your breakout groups. Then it may be that we could talk to those specific gems. If you want to check that in your chat forum. But feel free to jump in and have a kōrero. This is our time to have a wānanga about the kōrero that's been said this morning.
Mihi ana kia tātou. Tēnei e whakamano atu kia koutou e Angie Eruini ma. Nā tēnei mahi whakahirihira. This way of thinking, knowing, doing is so entrenched inside of Indigenous ways of seeing that it's really beautiful to see this come to the forefront. Ahakoa, it's been framed up inside of Te Māori, but when we think about it as a global space, watching the environment as an Indigenous way of knowing how to be in one's environment, and Indigenous people have that. So to be able to have a framing to start practicing an Indigenous strategy to knowing how to be is such a groundbreaking piece of mahi. So e mihi ana ki nei o ngā whakatairanga.
Kia ora, everybody. I will sort of feedback a little bit maybe on a common theme in our breakout room. So we discussed, like, two of us are in a similar space, or in the same space in the Hikatia team, which is primary prevention. One from Northland, and I'm in Papamoa, and then we had Jess from the lab. So what we were saying was it's built on whakawhanaungatanga, first and foremost, with understanding yourself and obviously your team and where you all fit in that space. And then once, you know, you've kind of got that solidified, then you can go out and mobilize or connect in your areas much better. So that was whakaaro. So I think at the end of the day, you just got to do it from the heart, and when you do it from the heart and you do it properly, and yeah, I mean, we all do this mahi because we want to, not because we want to be billionaires, right? It's something that we're passionate about, and kia ora.
I'm just going to quickly jump in. It's Huhana here from Mātauranga, and I just think it's a real honour to be amongst these younger ones today who are infiltrators and translators, and they're getting the right people together in the right room, and they're translating the complexity of what we deal with every day, but connecting people from different kind of arenas. And I think that bringing authentic selves and converging, and it just felt really strong in our small breakout group, just how much we just keep pulling people together, how we converge with different people. And I think drawing from Mātauranga Māori positions and that whole whakakotahitanga that is happening across the motu, there's a great joy to be found in this way of being. And I think I wanted to say I found great joy in coming to this kaupapa today. I'm really glad I just tuned in. because I think we need this joy, and I think at the same time too, the joy we harness, because we constantly keep things as positive as, reflecting forward, our past, present, future as one. I just coming back to the joy I've found today of just hearing from young people across the country and the fantastic things that they're doing from a Te Ao Māori perspective is maintain the joy, people. Ana.
Kia ora koutou. Hey, just quickly, I noticed a couple of my huaropu were mawiwi, or a little bit under the weather. And that's the same as my whare currently. So yeah, just wanted to attune into that, and in terms of activating a response, tell my hoa, have a rest after this. Look after ourselves. We're at the end of our tau Māori, yeah, so I might be feeling a little bit tired. Take some time out, have a reflection, a celebration of all the hard work that we've done for this tau. Yeah, tēnā koutou.
Cool. I sort of kia ora maraea, liken the process to like the rimurapa, which is the bull kelp, and thinking about that it's heaps of things, and sometimes you might be a flute, you might use it as kai, you might use it as really looking at how it looks at the rimurapa sees the violence of the sea on the rocky bases in the Taiao. The mahi that I've been doing is in the family violence space, and it's what I sort of liken it to, because we're in a place where we're exploring and listening to voices of tāne, people who support tāne and their whānau through this space. And so it's like all goods, but what our tension is, that specialist space versus our just people like whānau ora providers, or providers that aren't specialists. So that's been our tension, and whether they want to collaborate more or, just actually come together and have a community, build that community of practice because they're already doing it. The natural progression that we're seeing, where I think about the kelp and what it does, the rimurapa, like just goes in and it can harvest and incubate good conversations, and that's what we're trying to build for the future of my mahi that I'm leading with my whānau, but also how we can open that up in different sounds and music that can come out of the rimurapa, and it's around that activating, exploring, even if people are resisting, it's all goods, like, because the Taiao's told us it's all goods, like, be like the rimurapa and let the violent seas just like smash against the rocks, because it's all goods, because the rimurapa still remains. But I think for me is around how do we activate that space, and definitely just get it done. I think, like, just do it, test anything, play with it, and be the tamaiti hautatu in the Taiao, be the whānau hautatu, go and collect that kai moana and put it in the rimurapa, and go and pick those 20s so that you can make a big kai out of that. And so I think that's what we're trying to do, is like try and get the right kai in there, and sometimes some kai might get discarded and it's all good, but yeah, really making sure that looking into the Taiao, if things get hard, like go into the Taiao, watch that, activate from that, like, rather than just sitting back and not taking it, but just thinking, oh, I might have to design more. It's like, no, just try it out, because the Taiao always tries it out. So this is not just giving us permission, but just giving you good observation, because it's like exploring and listening and activating and just observing how different environments change. That's me.
Kia ora, I'm Rhoda. I'm with Auckland Council, and You know, this has been a really wonderful process, because we came out together and we actually had similar frustrations at the time. Also, kia ora to my friend Huhana, and we both got grey together. How did that happen? It's also that whole thing of I've been working in homelessness for a while. And this whole environment has made it hard for me within my employment to work in that sector. And so I've been shifted to climate resilience. And I realised that actually, with all these frustrations that I had about the government and the work programs and everything, that actually I didn't need to let go of anything. I actually could bring, by going to the community in the new work and gathering together the group, on climate resilience, they actually all brought the positivity in and the ways to think about what we can do at the time. So yes, it was that stepping away from the frustrations and into the community was such a huge thing. Kia ora.
Kia ora e te whānau. I love what Courtney just put in the chat about that Mark Kopua podcast and saying the thing and addressing the elephant in the room. I think it's so important, and when we have those strong relationships, we can. And I just want to mihi to Irina Hodgkinson up there in Kaitaia. She brought some beautiful kupu into our hui the other day around healthy taupatu, healthy debate. And I've taken it a couple of places already. And Irina, once again, beautiful kupu. They really resonate with people. Yeah, it's really important for us to be able to share different perspectives and listen, and really practice that in discomfort in front of others, that it's okay to have this taupatu. So kia ora e hoa, beautiful.
Kia ora e te whare. Ka mihi atu ki a tātou I tēnei wā me ngā kōrero kua puta mai, ngā tuhinga kua puta mai, tino miharo, te whakarongo. One of the things that I just wanted to share before we wrap up, this mahi of observing the Taiao, it's not something that we can just learn overnight. This is a practice that we have to train, we have to exercise. This is an activity that we have to engage with every day. And when we start to learn and understand the language of the Taiao, we have a connection to it that strengthens the connection we have to ourselves, and we start to read and interpret ourselves in a much better, more healthier way. And that resonates outward towards the different relationships that we hold in the different spaces that we are in. And as we explored today, ngā tohu o te rangi, ngā tohu o te whenua, ngā tohu o te moana, ira tangata also provide tohu. So it's important to always reflect within and to take stock of how you're feeling, what your taringa are hearing, what your whātua are seeing, what your whātua manawa is observing, because often there are times where we can't engage with the Taiao, but when we engage with our internal Taiao, it will provide tohu, it would provide signs that can help direct us into the right direction. Ne? Kia ora.
No, kia ora, Eruini. I want to tautoko that and say my experience of the work is that you have to do the work for yourself before you can do the system change stuff. And that's the hardest work to do. Well, it has been for me, but yeah, we have to be mindful of what we're bringing into the systems, into these systems to make the change. Thank you so much for your kōrero. As we've discussed, this is a new framework. This is a new way for us to be thinking through an Indigenous lens about how we support system change, how we hold complexity, and we're going to continue to work on that and develop it. Love to hear your thoughts about it. Thank you for all your sharing this morning. And just before I hand it back to Riri to close, I just also want to acknowledge Kelly, our teammate Kelly, because it's been Eruini, myself and Kelly working on this particular framing. And so she's a very humble person, and she didn't want to do any of the kōrero, but I just want you to know she put a whole heap of work into this mahi with us, and I just want to acknowledge that, Kelly, and our wider lab team who continue to support an Indigenous-led system change methodology and practices. So kia ora, everybody. Thank you for spending the time with us this morning, and I'll hand it back to Riri.
Kia ora.
Kia ora tātou. First, I just wanted to pay special mention. I love the fact that we've got like-minded people at the same time, the same space this morning. One thing I wanted to touch on was the kōrero from Umaraya around the rimurapa, and how we're intentionally utilizing experiences or things into Taiao based on our own knowledge systems, and how we're utilizing it or liking it to our spaces and mahi. So that's the perfect example